If you're a team leader, you have more influence on how your team shows up and operates than you probably realize. Because of your higher status, everything you do and say, good and bad, is magnified by your authority over others and can cause unintended but damaging dynamics on your team. In this video, I'm going to cover 6 significant team concepts that you might be neglecting that are causing unnecessary conflict in your team. Hi, I'm Beth Strathman. Welcome back to my channel. So let's take a look at those 6 team concepts that you might be neglecting that can cause unproductive and unnecessary team conflict. Let's start with building a firm team foundation. Now, you're going to create lots of avoidable conflict if you as team leader have not worked with your team to establish a firm team foundation. So what do we mean by this? Well, a good foundation includes clear team purpose, team vision, values, norms, along with roles and responsibilities for your team. Without this kind of a roadmap, there's a lack of shared goals and consistent processes, so team members can be unclear about roles and responsibilities. Also, decision-making can be inconsistent and communication can be muddled. Needless to say, your team will spend too much time on misunderstandings, frustration, and disagreements between them, especially when hitting an implementation snag or obstacle, or even when just assigning tasks. To avoid your team working in parallel instead of working together as one, take the time to create something like a team charter. This is like a team constitution that can contain the team's overall purpose, its mission, its values, behavioral norms for how you work together, along with team roles and responsibilities. With these basic understandings of what's expected of the team and its members, you'll avoid lots of unnecessary conflict. Let's go on to number 2, fostering better team member relationships. Now, you wouldn't think that you need to teach people how to get along. They're adults after all. But you can cause unnecessary conflict on your team when you neglect creating acceptance and inclusion for all team members. When they don't feel they belong, individuals can feel sidelined, unheard, and undervalued. This results in poor communication and a breakdown in collaboration. And when team members don't feel accepted and able to collaborate and communicate candidly, resentment leads to silence, which ultimately, in a weird way, can lead to lots of unnecessary conflict. To avoid unproductive conflict due to poor team relationships, you can foster something called psychological safety with your team. This might entail teaching them about how to get to know each other informally, to be genuinely curious about each other's work, to actively listen to each other, and to assume good intentions of other people. When you focus on creating more psychological safety, your team relationships and communication will become more respectful and candid, enabling team members to transform what would have been unnecessary conflict into productive conflict. Third, let's look at creating helpful team systems and processes. Now, unnecessary conflict happens when you don't facilitate a discussion to establish or clarify processes and procedures that will help define the ways that your team works together more effectively. Without clear processes, you're just asking for confusion about responsibilities, unclear expectations, inefficient workflows, and unequal workload distribution, all of which can lead to unnecessary conflict. To avoid the conflicts that come from miscommunications and confusion, work together to identify, then draft and clarify any team processes, protocols, or systems that are necessary for getting the work done. Also, set expectations for asking for help and giving help to each other, for decision making, and around how, when, and where to communicate with each other. Let's go on to another concept, which is creating processes to connect with stakeholders. Now, teams do need processes to stay connected with those who either influence or benefit from their work. These are called their stakeholders. When you as a team leader don't make sure your team establishes and maintains good relationships with stakeholders, your team will experience misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and a lack of trust, along with conflicts with stakeholder priorities. The end result is frustration, conflict, and tension, not only among team members, but with your stakeholders as well, as they pursue uninformed ways of meeting stakeholder needs. One way to decrease conflict around stakeholder needs is to get to know the team's stakeholders. The teams can create a stakeholder map, for example, that shows the system of team stakeholders relative to the team. The team can discuss how the team creates value for and shows respect for each stakeholder, and how stakeholders do the same for the team. Your team can also determine what's really important for both the team and each stakeholder. And of course, you can do stakeholder interviews to find all this out. When you pay attention to how the team works with its stakeholders, team members will avoid unnecessary conflict amongst themselves and with those stakeholders who influence and benefit from the team's work. Another way you can unintentionally cause unproductive conflict is as forgetting to focus on team learning. If you as team leader overemphasize mistakes, you're inadvertently creating a tense work environment that erupts into unnecessary conflict. When mistakes and failures occur, team members can be defensive and fail to collaborate with each other because they start pointing the finger of blame instead of focusing on solutions. Doing this hinders productivity and creates widespread distrust, animosity, and conflict within the team. If you create a psychological safety, as I mentioned before, that will also help team members to be comfortable discussing errors. In addition, you can also devote time for the team to analyze the root cause of mistakes, collaboratively brainstorm solutions to prevent repetition, and actively apply lessons learned to future work. Consider using a formal process to do this kind of reflection, such as holding an after-action review or using Kolb's learning cycle. And I'll put links to definitions of those in the description. When you create psychological safety along with these processes for the team to reflect and learn together, team members will see that their issues and concerns are heard and valued. So they'll be more likely to view mistakes as learning opportunities and engage in open reflection and communication to learn together without unnecessary conflict. And finally, the sixth thing you can do is shore up your own leadership capability. Take a look at how you lead. Have you inadvertently created conflict on your team because of your leadership style or how you're showing up? When you don't provide clear direction or actively engage with your team, when you avoid making tough decisions, when you play favorites, micromanage, or don't hold team members accountable, when you don't communicate effectively, or don't empower team members to take individual and collective ownership of the team's work, you can create a leadership vacuum, and that causes unnecessary conflict as people try to fill that vacuum. To address your leadership capabilities, consider gathering feedback from trusted peers as well as from your team. Seek training and coaching on topics that come up more than once in this feedback that you get. Generally, leadership topics related to character, competence, making connections with team members, and communicating candidly and respectively are the issues. So whether you bolster your abilities around communication, decision-making, employee engagement, building trust and psychological safety, or managing team performance, honing your emotional intelligence and other leadership skills can decrease unnecessary conflict on your team. So pay attention to team purpose, team processes, stakeholder connection, team relationships, team learning, and team leadership. Then make adjustments as necessary. You'll see positive changes in how your team works together and with its stakeholders without unnecessary conflict. Thanks for watching this video. Please like it, and if you're new here, subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments which one of these 6 team concepts you're doing well and which ones maybe you could improve. And check the description for a link to a team assessment that I put together. It'll give you an idea of how your team is doing.